There are two motivators in life, either the gaining of pleasure or the avoidance of pain. And that's the first step in really getting unstuck. And that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. There's 8 steps that I used to really get unstuck in my life. And I am going to be sharing those with you today. And number 8 is probably one of the most unconventional tips that you may not have thought of, but I tell you, it's one of the most powerful. So stick around till the end. So the first one, as I mentioned, is awareness. And awareness is really about realizing that there's something in your life that you want to change. You may feel that you are content with your life. And if that's the case, that's fine. But know that you're not going to be able to change anything. If you are okay with a certain area, you're not going to be able to change anything. If you feel that there's some parts in your life that you are kind of comfortable with, you are not going to be able to change anything. So awareness is really the first step in realizing that there is something that exists, something that is causing you more pain than pleasure, and you know that that thing has to change. Think about it. In life, why do we wake up in the morning and why do we go to work? Why do we do all of these things that ultimately we may like or we may not like? But we are doing that because we are avoiding the pain of not having a roof over our heads, or not having food on the table, or not having a car to drive because we don't want to have to walk. We also have the gaining of pleasure, and those are the things that could be a new car that you are wanting. Perhaps you've seen a car and there's really something that is something you're working towards because you believe that once you are in that car, it'll give you the satisfaction or the pleasure that you have been seeking. So realize that those two motivators in life, either the avoidance of pain or the gaining of pleasure, and those are things that drive all our behavior. And it starts with awareness. Awareness is the first thing. And realize that there's something in your life that you are discontent with, that you are unhappy with, and that you want to change. And I imagine that the reason you clicked on this video is because you know that there is something that you need to change. And that's the first step. The second step is really about doing something about that discontentment, that unhappiness or dis-ease that you have in your life. Hal Elrod has an amazing saying which says, the moment that you accept responsibility for everything in your life is the moment that you gain the power to change anything and everything in your life. And I love that quote, and it's really been quite transformational in changing my perspective on life, because when I realized that everything within my life is something that I need to take full responsibility for, full accountability for, and no one else, that I realized that I'm not going to be blaming anything. I'm not going to be blaming anyone. No past circumstances, nothing that has happened to me. And that is an incredibly empowering state. But now that you realize that you have that responsibility, that you're taking that responsibility, you need to do something about it. So we've brought awareness to this fact. We brought awareness that there's something that we need to change. And now we need to take responsibility, and we need to do something about that, because it doesn't help to just realize that something does need to change. What action are you taking in the movement that's going to move you closer towards changing that thing? The third one is that you need to realize that there are people around in your life that may be influencing you negatively. And I really believe that the people around us, whether that's our friends, whether that's our colleagues, whether it's even mentors that you've selected, you know, those individuals that are around you, do you realize how much they're impacting you, how much they're influencing you? It's often said that we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time around. And yeah, I think to a certain extent that's true. But if you are not conscious about that fact, and you don't realize that all of those behaviors and all of those thoughts that are kind of circulating as you are surrounding yourself with those individuals, those are impacting you. And I had to, a few years ago, when I realized that something needed to change, that I started to have these kind of dreams and these visions and this ambition for my life, that I knew I needed to not necessarily get a new friend group, because some of the friends that that I had back then are still my friends today, but I started to then bring in other individuals in my life that I aspire to. And there's nothing wrong with being around aspirational and motivational people, because oftentimes, we need to be able to surround ourselves with those individuals who have a different and a higher quality level of thinking, and they've got bigger dreams. They've also got big dreams. They've got ambitions, and they motivate you. They inspire you to also want to achieve those big things, because you start to realize when you surround yourself with those individuals that they have, one, been able to achieve great things, but also they have these massive ambitions. And that's the reason why I'm part of networking groups. I'm part of a group with a whole bunch of founders and these individuals that have massive aspirations, and I want to be surrounding myself with those type of individuals because they then inspire me to level up my life. But if you are surrounded by individuals in your life that are constantly bringing you down, if you cannot tell them what your ambitions and what your dreams are without them demotivating you or kind of limiting your thinking, then you want to really reconsider those individuals that are around you that are holding you back from achieving your greatness. The fourth thing is that you want to be conscious about this, and you want to be able to make a list. When was the last time that you sat down and you actually said to yourself, or you thought to yourself, what actually brings me joy? What makes me happy? Where is my energy being drained? What actually is making me sad? Being conscious about these things is so important, and really being able to sit down, write a list. I'll never forget, I think it was in 2016 when I was doing a course through, I found Tony Robbins, and one of the questions that he asked in this course is, what emotions are you feeling on a day-to-day basis? And that was the first part. And then the second part was, well, what do you want to feel? And I hadn't thought about that before when I sat down and I wrote the list of what am I currently experiencing. And that was overwhelm, that was tiredness, there was fatigue. I was even bordering on depression. I was in a very unhappy space in my job. And what did I want to feel like? What was my ambition? I didn't want to feel that overwhelm. I wanted to feel joy when I thought about my work. I wanted to work with, I wanted to work in my passion. I wanted to work with people. I wanted to experience all of these things. And the process of sitting down and writing that list brought awareness and made me realize that these things that I was doing, that situation that I was in, was really something that I needed to be able to change. And it then started to move me forward in being able to create what I ultimately was able to, I suppose, achieve. And the life that I now live came about by bringing that awareness and really putting those thoughts down on paper and not just letting them circulate in your head. The fifth thing to be aware of is understanding the brain, understanding your biology. And that's because there's two main parts of the brain that influence a lot of our behaviors on a day-to-day basis. The first part of the brain is the limbic system. And this is one of the oldest part of our brains. And that has really been what we had that enabled us to keep us alive. A lot of our fight or flight response is due to that part of the brain where we had to kind of roam and we were worried about being attacked by animals. That doesn't happen anymore, but we still have that part of our brain that when we stepping up onto stage, or we needing to have a hard conversation, or we sitting in traffic and we get enraged by someone who's cut us off, that's the quick thinking part of the brain that actually feels like we are under attack. And what happens? Your heart rate elevates, you start to get, your palms start to get sweaty. And that is really not where logical thinking happens. Your logical thinking, your reasoning, your thinking about the future, planning ahead, your prefrontal cortex, which is actually right here in the forehead, or right behind the forehead rather, is where that reasoning takes place. And that effectively is one of the newest part of the brains, which requires the most amounts of energy. And oftentimes, we'll find ourselves kind of floating between these two different parts where we feel like we're under attack, and someone is attacking us, someone's having an argument with us, and we feel enraged. But a lot of these things, once you understand the brain, and once you realize that those reactions that are taking place when you are angry, or when you want to change something, when you're feeling excited about wanting to change something, and then you realize, that kind of dies down, and why is it that I can't take action? Is because we have that heightened emotion and we feel excited, and then all of a sudden things don't happen and nothing ever moves forward, because you have to be able to engage the prefrontal cortex. And a lot of the behaviors and a lot of the habits that we have, some unconscious, but those things have been formed in our brains through years and years and years. And if we want to be able to change anything in our life, then we have to realize that we're going to be fighting a lot of those neural pathways that are being created over decades, and things are going to be difficult. It is going to be difficult when you first wanting to change a behavior, when you first want to change a habit, because those things are so kind of deeply embedded that it's going to take a lot out of you. That's why things like vision boards, manifestation, affirmations, those sort of things that project, and we can start to think about a future state, and we start to realize that these things are possible for us. That's why they're extremely powerful, because when we start to visualize what those things could be, that we then start to then believe it, because we're creating those new neural pathways within our brain that enable us to achieve those things. But we first have to imagine, and we first have to realize that it is possible in order for us to then achieve it. Really, that clear future state that you desire, that's going to help make it possible. The sixth thing is that you have to expect setbacks and plan for them, and know that whenever you're going to do anything differently in your life, that you have to plan, you have to expect that there's going to be a lot of discomfort, which again, goes back to the first thing is, having that awareness, and also just realizing that these things are going to be difficult. It is going to be extremely challenging, but ultimately it's not about failure, because when you are trying something new, things are not going to work out. Things are going to be difficult, but you will only fail if you give up. And that's one of the things that we tend to forget, because if something doesn't work, we tend to feel, it's never going to work out. And that's not the case, because there's just so many examples that I can think of where people that have been able to achieve tremendous success were only able to do it over a long period of time of trying and failing and trying. And that doesn't exclude us. So you have to be able to have that resilience and have that planning, engaging your prefrontal cortex and knowing that things are not going to work out, and that's okay, because you can always course correct and adjust it and try a different avenue. The seventh thing is, again, related to expecting these setbacks, is taking care of your health. And it's not just physical, it's not just your physical health, but there's various areas. The first one is the mental. So what's entering your brain? Mental health is a big thing in these days. A lot of people are stressed, they're anxious, they're overwhelmed, and it's affecting their mental health. So, what are you doing that's going to help you in that area? And things like, breathing exercises, things like even, things that I spoke about, the affirmations, the visioning, that helps you to plan ahead, and it just helps to calm you down. And it really helps to enable you to take care of that key component in your life, which is your mental health. The second one is emotional regulation is extremely important. When it comes to emotions, we tend to think that we've got a handful of emotions that we experience, but emotions, there's just so many out there. And if you have a look at the emotional wheel, of which there's dozens and dozens and dozens, and it starts with having that awareness around what that emotion is, being able to name it, that'll help you to deal with whatever you're going through at that time. Third one is spiritual. So what brings you joy? What are the things that you are doing to contribute to help others? Gratitude, gratitude journals have been a big thing, in my life, and just being grateful for the things that are around you. But gratitude journals are not for everyone. I know some people that doesn't work for them, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be gratitude journals, but it could just be something that sets your soul on fire. What are you doing from a spiritual point of view on a daily or a weekly basis? And then the last one is, of course, physical health. So what are you doing to take care of your health, take care of your body? There's been so many studies these days around the connection between mind and body, and how just being able to get out there and get your heart rate up and elevate that and sweat a little bit, and how that has a positive impact on your mental health. I honestly believe it to be true. So it doesn't have to be that you need to go out there and be a fitness freak, but just eating relatively healthy meals and elevating your heart rate on a daily basis it's incredible to really help you to get out of that funk, whatever it is that you experience in your life. And then the last one is one of the things that I did a few years ago, and I've recently come back to it, and I'm going to update it, and that's about writing your eulogy. And what that is effectively, when you are not around anymore, what is it that the people in your life, both your friends, your family, your colleagues, your boss, your employees, what would they say about you? What are the last rights that what are the last things that they're going to say about you when you're no longer around? And just being able to project and put yourself in that situation, and realizing when you're not around, what is it that people are going to say about you? What are the things that you are going to be remembered by? Is going to help put some perspective and realize that if there are certain things that you feel are things you want to change in your life, then it's going to help to motivate you to realize that these are the things that you need to be able to change now, so that by the end of your life, those are the things that you are going to be remembered by. And it's just, for me, it was an extremely powerful exercise to go through. And as I said, I'm going to revisit that and update it, because that was something I wrote quite a few years ago. But it's an extremely powerful exercise to go through when you actually physically sit down and you start to consider what your legacy is going to be about. Those are the things that have helped me get unstuck. I hope you found value of them. If you did, implement some of them in your life, and I'd love to know which one resonated the most. And if you did get value out of it, please share this around. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will catch you again in the next video.